I would say to, I mean, really anybody, but especially moms, is define your own version of how you want things to be. Define your own version of the way things should be, I guess maybe I should say it. And because I bet you that 9 times out of 10, your adult life is going to turn out a little bit differently than the way that you were brought up, because that's just the way things are, right? I bet you never guessed you were going to be a mom of triplets. And so you kind of have to redefine motherhood and the way your life looks now and your marriage. So take the time to do that and, take the bonus step and journal it out.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Mom Does It All. If you're looking for encouragement, empowerment, and uplifting when it comes to motherhood and mompreneurship, this is the show for you. I'm your host, Marta Spurk, triplet mom, success coach, and all things motivation extraordinaire. Today I'm going to be talking to Jordan Thomson. She's the host of the Journal Theory podcast, full-time working mama, and really just an awesome human being I am so grateful to have met on this podcasting journey. We'll be chatting about journaling, obviously. She'll give us some awesome tips on that. We'll talk about self-development, her unexpected pregnancy, and also her entrepreneurial experiences. Let's get right to it. Hi, Jordan. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here.
Yes. So I just want to start by talking about the way you describe yourself on your podcast. So let me see if I get this right. Okay. You're a self-development junkie, recovering shy girl, journaling advocate, and law of attraction obsessed. I love that. And now you're going to have to tell me your whole story describing all of those.
Okay, let me tell you all the things about myself in like 2 minutes or less. Okay. So I'll start with the recovering shy girl. And so I word it that way because I kind of refuse to call myself shy anymore. So I grew up as just this painfully shy girl. I'm talking just so uncomfortable in my own skin. I was just terrified of people, terrified of having hard conversations, really, really hard for me to ask for things that I wanted and just to have a voice. And so that really became an identifier. That was part of my identity. I really up until this past year when I started to do a lot of personal development and a lot of growth. And it clicked for me. And I was like, if I keep calling myself a shy girl, then I'm going to continue to be a shy girl. Yeah. So I switched that verbiage around a little bit and I called myself a recovering shy girl because it's something that I'm absolutely still working through and I battle pretty consistently. But it's something that I'm working on no longer being. And so
that's amazing. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with the law of attraction too. It all kind of goes together. So
exactly. So the law of attraction and the self-development, I mean, they go hand in hand. So a few years back, I really started to dive into the world of personal development through, starting off with some books. And one book in particular that really kicked off a journey for me was How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie.
Oh, I love that.
And yeah, so he's actually most well known for How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a very, very famous book. Yeah. But this other one, it just gives a lot of great practical tools on how to overcome stress and worry. And so that book kind of got me on this path of self-development, and it just became this really cool rabbit hole into finding law of attraction and manifestation and, all the things I talk about in kind of that spiritual world of self-development.
Right.
So,
and what got you into the self-development? Because you said over the last year, so it's fairly recent?
No. So this was a few years ago. So I was probably maybe 26, 27. I'm 31 now. So it was a few years ago. But I also used to be just a major stress ball. And I would call myself that. I'm super stressed out. And it was, self-fulfilling prophecy for sure.
Yeah.
But I had a friend who picked up on that one day because it was obvious. I had a total meltdown at the gym one day. And he pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, I have a gift for you. here's this book. And it was the book that I just mentioned.
Oh.
And I was kind of like, yeah, all right. Like, I'm like, you know, to me, I'm like, this feels like work, but I did it because I felt like he was really trying to share something with me. And that book alone just opened my eyes to wanting to find other ways to change, to relieve more stress and to just, you know, really take a little bit more control over my emotions and my fears. And so, yeah, I just started, going on YouTube and finding motivating videos and things like that. And that eventually led me to, I don't know if you've ever heard of Abraham Hicks, but she's very well known in kind of like the spiritual community in terms of like law of attraction and things like that. She's written a lot of books, and I started to dive into that and just got totally addicted to the idea that we have complete creative control of our lives. And it's just been a really cool path ever since. And and so now I'm still learning so much about it. And this past year has been pretty transformative for me. And part of that has been turning around and teaching other people the things that I've learned through my own podcasts and my own blogs. So, yeah.
And where does journaling fit into all of this?
Oh, journaling. It's like my other love. I believe there are a lot of people out there who just don't fully understand the true power that journaling can provide. So I'll kind of take you way back here. I've been journaling ever since I was a little kid. And it really was more like, like a diary that I kept when I was younger. And it was writing about like stupid stuff, like my crushes and things like that.
Who hasn't done that?
Yeah, exactly. But because I was such a shy kid, I really turned inward towards myself, and a lot of the emotions that I kept inside because I didn't feel like I could voice them, they came out through writing. And so, that diary really became a place where dreams begin to take shape, and like my future desires begin to kind of evolve. And that was a home for that. And so I've been journaling off and on ever since I was a kid, and always been a big fan of writing, whether it was creating story or poetry or just simply spilling out like my guts onto a page because I needed to find a place for it.
Right.
And yeah, so I guess it's always been a part of my own journey and my own creativity. And now I just see it as a widely underutilized tool for self-care.
Yes, totally. And that's one thing that, it's so interesting to talk to so many moms, and they kind of have a similar journey, obviously different, you started this journey from before having your baby, of, trying to release the stress and trying to, change the way you think about yourself and talk about yourself. But I know that this happens a lot after you become a mom, because it's like you're trying to find yourself all over again. And especially with entrepreneurship, I have been trying to commit to journaling and to, talking about the things that I'm grateful for and all of the things that we're encouraged to do to be in this successful mindset.
Yeah.
And I've always found it hard to stick with it. Even though, I am an English major, I have been writing and doing stuff with that for a long time. It just didn't come as easy to me. And I am sure for some people it's the same.
Yeah.
Some tips that you have for these people that are like, no, I understand the benefits. I just can't bring myself to be consistent with it.
Yeah. So there's a couple things. So I think one of it is, with the consistency piece is try not to make it this big, long letter that you have to write. Shorten it down to just one small page, or you could even utilize what's called the 5-minute journal. It's a real thing. And all you do is you write like 3 things that you're grateful for. It's very structured. So 3 things you're grateful for and 3 things that you would like to see happen today. And I think there's maybe like one other thing in there. I forget what it actually is, but something like that, where you don't really need to come up with the content, because maybe that's part of it, is you're not feeling inspired to write. That's something I think is a great opportunity for somebody to just get into the consistency of writing. And then once you feel like you've gotten that down and it's now a habit or a practice, then you can kind of branch out and start writing the things that maybe are actually coming to you now. And you can create what goes into that page. But I would say start small and just start with the things that you're grateful for and writing those down. And that alone can kind of just get you into the habit. Another thing is, and I talk about this on the podcast a little bit, is you don't always have to write in order to get the benefits of journaling. And I'm a huge believer in putting pen to paper, because I think there's just some sort of magical connection that happens from your brain to the page when that happens. But I do believe in spoken journaling too. And that goes, I think, for people who are more verbal processors than anything. So, you know, if you take someone like myself who's more innately introverted, writing down makes sense because it's all inside of me, you know? And voicing is not something that's maybe in the comfort zone. So if you try to utilize journaling with spoken word, put yourself in your car, lock yourself in a room, take yourself out in nature when nobody can hear you, and just start talking. Like, release the things that are going on in your brain and put them into words. And that alone can be incredibly therapeutic.
And I couldn't agree more. I was actually going to say that because I struggle with writing, I have found that speaking works best for me, but I didn't want to add that in because I wanted to ask you for your tips. So now you just explained it all. It has a lot to do with my personality. And I've been finding that out, especially after I started podcasting. It's like, I love saying things out loud. It's like my brain just starts connecting all of these things. And it is like journaling, but then I have people listening to me, which is nice because then I can get feedback on that as well. But I've been recording like myself with affirmations and all of that and gratitude, and then listening again. Because what I love about recording and listening back is that you don't have the excuse of, I don't really have time to do this right now. I mean, we all have a moment that we're either driving or doing something that you can push play on your phone and listen to it. And if it's you saying something positive, go for it. So
and you might be really surprised to hear the things that actually come out of your mouth when you listen back to your recordings. So that's where almost all of my solo podcast episodes are born, is in the car when I'm commuting around. I just hit record and I just start talking and it just flows out of me, which is interesting because I'm a writer at heart, not a speaker. But so I suggest, if you're, maybe if you're bored with journaling, or if you're not feeling the writing yet, like, try the spoken journaling out. It can be pretty cool.
Yes. I'm a total advocate for that one. I should add that to my intro. I'm an advocate for.
There you go. Yeah.
With your voice. No, that's awesome. And one thing that I loved so much about talking about your thoughts or writing it down. One of another mom that has been a guest on the podcast has said that it's when you're willing to have a conversation with yourself. And I feel like that is so powerful because, especially as moms, we just, bottle things inside. We just go on through the day, go on through the motions, and you don't really tune in to yourself and what you're really feeling. And then eventually it will explode somehow. It'll come out somehow. Might as well come out willingly, and you work through it. So that's the whole journaling process. And that's why I totally encourage.
Yeah, absolutely. It's taking a moment to be honest with yourself, but also being vulnerable and knowing that nobody else is going to read it and nobody else is going to hear it. So if you're going to be vulnerable at all, like, take that step first and do it for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Who better for you to talk to and be honest with than yourself? I feel like that's something that we have to, bring to the forefront for moms a lot, because we just suffer in silence and don't talk about things. And that's one of the biggest reasons. And I do want to go into entrepreneurship with you. There's lots of things that are interesting in there for us to talk about. But let's talk about motherhood and this transition in your life with all the things that you were already dealing with since you started this journey of self-development and all of that before you had your baby.
Yeah. So I got pregnant at a really interesting time. My daughter, oh my gosh, she's hands down the love of my life. And my husband and I are just, she's incredible. But we did not plan the pregnancy.
Mm.
And it was before we got married, and it was a complete surprise. And for me, I felt totally derailed by that, and happy ending, right? We're
Right.
all happy, and everything happened the way it should. I believe that now, but I was kind of amidst this like really, really cool personal development like path,
Mm-hmm.
and then this happened, and in the moment, I couldn't see like why are things happening this way, because I had some really strong beliefs that were instilled in me that you were supposed to get married before you have a baby. Like that was very important, and it was irresponsible to do that, to get pregnant before you get married and all that stuff. And that was really kind of ingrained in me. And so when that happened, I actually, all of the stuff that I was doing to kind of better myself stopped. I actually stopped journaling. I actually wasn't too much into meditation yet. I really just kind of like, it sounds awful because it should have been the most joyous time, but those first couple of months I really grappled with the emotions of getting pregnant. And most of it was around what other people were kind of going to think of me, and the judgment that might come with me getting pregnant before marriage. And it might not seem like a big deal to a lot of people, but it was a big deal to my family. And I had also, Eddie and I had just moved out to Chicago. We lived in Chicago for a little bit, and I just moved out there for a job, and then like got pregnant really soon after, so I just had this idea that there was going to be judgment because I got pregnant irresponsibly. And it was really ended up being such a cool thing to happen because it really changed me on an identity level. I was in major, major control mode, like wanting to plan out every little event of my life and the timeline and all of that. And the universe stepped in and was like, all right, sister, we're going to throw you a curveball, but it's all for the higher good.
Yes.
And it really just kind of made me take a step back and redefine the way my life was supposed to go, and do my best to not live that path based off what other people thought that I should.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And just you saying that, this sounds awful, but I think it's so important for us to share that, especially because we feel this guilt. It's like you just realize you're pregnant and you're already feeling that guilt that we carry with us. Obviously, we're trying to get better and trying to overcome it, but it's just there all the time. It's just because it's a hard job. And I remember when you were interviewing me and I was telling you about when I found out I had triplets, I was having triplets, and all the mixed emotions of, do I really want 3 kids? And you were like, yeah, I understand that. And I know your story.
Yeah.
So I can totally relate. And I'm sure many other moms out there can relate, because it's like, you're never going to be ready. That's the one thing. Because people are like, oh, I'm waiting until I'm ready to get pregnant. It's like, you're never going to be ready. And then when it happens at an unexpected time, then you don't feel ready. And then you have all these mixed emotions. So it's super important for us to share that, because it's real and lots of women go through that. And then in the end, you see what a blessing it is, and how it's put you on this amazing path of self-reflection, self-discovery.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And just make you realize how powerful you are to do anything.
Yeah.
So let's talk about entrepreneurship then, because I know a lot of it has to do with motherhood. And I do want to touch on the fact that you had already dabbled on some stuff, even with your husband. Tell us all.
Yeah, I don't know where this comes from. I mean, I've always felt like I've been pretty creative and I like to make things, but ever since I was in my early 20s, I've just had this entrepreneurial spirit. And I can't say that any of them have been huge successes, but major, major learning experiences.
Yeah, that's what matters.
Yeah, exactly. So the first go around, I think it was about like 25 or 26 when I started this handwritten mug business. So I would sell mugs I would handwrite like snarky little sayings and things like that on them.
Cute.
like this is wine or this could be vodka or something like that. And I would do, some like trendy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really just like a passion project. I'm like, hey, I'm going to open an Etsy shop. Let's just see how it goes. And, this whole time I always had jobs, like full-time jobs. And this was always like a side hustle. And all of a sudden I just started getting all these orders rolling in. And I'm like, what's going on? And come to find out, it just went viral on Pinterest. Like of my photos. No idea how it happened. I started seeing these like bigger Facebook pages like reposting it, and everyone was tagging me in these things. I'm like,
that's awesome.
Oh my God, it was, but I also had no idea how to handle it. I was so not prepared for creating like bulk orders and I was working out of a little apartment and so, at one point I was majorly stressed out trying to make this work on top of, just working my normal job and living life, that I was like, this was supposed to be fun. I'm not having fun anymore. So I decided to stop doing it. And I never really regretted that. And I do look back on some of the products and I'm like, that was a really cool idea. But ultimately it wasn't like the business for me.
And I love that you mentioned that, because I feel like that's super important too, to say. And that was one of the things that I talked about when you interviewed me about using joy as a compass. Like, if you're not enjoying it, then something has to change. Whether it is completely stop what you're doing or find a different approach. Like, you deserve to be happy. Don't feel miserable because of what others are thinking, or because you have, the fear of, I can't move forward with this, I'm going to fail. Just make it simple for yourself and realize it's not working. It's not bringing you joy. You have to figure out a different way of going about it. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's something you're really passionate about and you want to make it work, then I say you tread through the hard times. But if it's ultimately not something that you can see yourself doing in years and years, then it might be time to find something else.
Yeah.
And I did. I did. Awesome. Not too long after, Eddie, he's my husband now, we were just, within our first year of dating, and we were both working in the fitness industry. So we were heavily involved in that and like nutrition and meal prep and all that stuff. And the nut butter, like the peanut butter craze kind of like started happening.
I remember that. Paleo, whatever.
Yeah. So we were like, we could totally do this and we could do it better. I think we like saw Nuts and More on Shark Tank or something like that. And we're like, oh yeah, we could totally do this. Sure enough, we started whipping up all these like crazy fun flavored nut butters, and again, like people were loving it. We were selling tons. I remember our whole living room was like completely, the floor was completely covered with orders right before Christmas time. And then again, it was like that same thing. We actually did it for a couple of years, and I slowly had kind of backed away, and he took the reins on the business because I had gotten like a promotion on my job and I needed to focus on that. And after, a couple of years, we were like, man, we actually hate doing this. And but at the same time, we learned so many valuable things on how to run a business and how to sell product and how to get feedback from clients and things not to do. So,
and how fun to do it together too. Because I know one of the frustrations, maybe for both sides, I don't know, just speaking from like a wife's perspective, and I know many other women out there have husbands that kind of don't believe in their dreams. And, it's hard to get them to understand. They're usually like, oh, this is just going to be a fad. You're going to be doing this for a couple months. But to have someone that supports you and does it with you, even if it means not working out, I don't even want to use the word fail, because you just decided it wasn't that, what you wanted to do. And it's always a learning experience. So that's super awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I am really lucky because my husband is incredibly supportive, and I can't tell you how many crazy ideas I have pitched to him about the things that I want to do with like business and career. And at the end of the day, he's always just like, yeah, babe, if that's what you want to do, then go do it. Yeah.
That's
so
great.
he's been wonderfully supportive, and especially with what I've got going on now. So I started
more about that.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned we had lived in Chicago for a couple of years. And after our daughter was born in April of 2017, we just realized we needed to move back home. You know, it just wasn't for us, and we wanted to raise our kid by our family because we were out there all alone. And so we decided to move back home, and luckily it worked out with my job. So this January of this year, we moved back to Southern California. We live in Long Beach right now.
Nice.
And yeah, it's awesome. It's a nice change from Chicago. That's for sure. And shortly after, that's when like my journey into personal development and all of that really just ramped up again. You know, I had gotten back into it after my daughter was born, but I just got on this path where I was reading all the books, listening all the podcasts, and just absorbing as much information as I possibly could. And I felt incredible when I was doing it. Mm-hmm. And I just got this download one day of, I need to start a podcast. I'm super passionate about storytelling and sharing other people's stories and sharing what I've learned and teaching. I mean, I've been a coach in a lot of different ways, shapes, and forms since I was in high school. I was a cheerleading coach, and I've been a personal trainer, and now I'm a manager of a whole team, and I just like to teach people. And so I'm like, this is just a perfect platform for me to be able to do that.
Yes.
And so I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to do it. It took me a couple months to kind of get all my ducks in a row. And I think it was maybe May this past year or April. I don't exactly remember, that I officially launched the Journal Theory podcast. And yeah, it is a place it's a place for connective storytelling. So it is everyday women talking about the stories and the events in their life that have transformed them. And those stories are the ones that kind of make you say like, oh my God, me too. Like I went through that.
Yeah.
And also, you know, I do my best to throw a little bit of mindset guidance in there and personal development and all that great stuff. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
I love that. And again, it has a lot to do with like my journey with podcasting too, like with being a teacher and just wanting to get my voice out there and encouraging these women and sharing these stories. So I totally love that and appreciate it as well. So you said you manage a team?
Yeah. So Journal Theory is just like, you know, my side hustle, if you will. But yeah, I've got a full-time job. So I'm a regional manager for a private personal training company in the greater LA area. So I oversee 6 studios and a team of 20-something people. And yeah, it's an incredible company and a great job. And it allows me the flexibility to, you know, work from home sometimes and see my daughter throughout the day, and also to, you know, do things like this and, you know, pursue personal passions.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And I was going to ask you about like, what is your message that you want moms to get out from this? And before I ask you that, because it's like just listening to you talk and everything, I could speak for you for just a second.
Sure.
I loved what you said right in the beginning of not calling yourself shy. Like if anyone could get anything out of this is like, what are you calling yourself? Is it something negative? Stop right now. That's my message from Jordan.
No, I love that you said that because I probably wouldn't have picked it out, but it's so true. You know, just be careful with how you present yourself because it can actually do some damage to how you view yourself in terms of your identity, you know? And identity is everything. So, you know, take a moment and take an opportunity to carefully craft what you want your identity to be.
Yeah.
But I'm going to add to that because I've got one more thing.
Please do.
I think it would go back to what we were talking about when, you know, I had to take a look at what I wanted for my own life when I got pregnant. And I would say to, I mean, really anybody, but especially moms, is define your own version of how you want things to be. Define your own version of the way things should be. I guess maybe I should say it. And because I bet you that 9 times out of 10, your adult life is going to turn out a little bit differently than the way that you were brought up, because that's just the way things are, right? I bet you never guessed you were going to be a mom of triplets. And so you kind of have to redefine
Yes.
motherhood and the way your life looks now and your marriage. So take the time to do that and, take the bonus step and journal it out.
Yes.
Yeah, write it down, speak it out, get it out of your brain.
Yes.
And into the universe.
And I love that too, because that has a lot to do with worrying so much about what others think and letting other people define how your life is going to be or how your life should be. And a lot of it too is maybe these people aren't even saying this or thinking this, but you're thinking it for them. It's just such a messed up situation. And that's why journaling is so important too, so that you can figure it all out and be like, no, this is what I want. I don't care what others think. And it helps with a lot of confidence too. So
absolutely.
Totally, everyone should start journaling after listening to this episode. And if they need any help or any tips, they can come to you and ask for little steps or like a guided journal, because I feel like, just what you said, it helps a lot for sure. So how can people find you? Obviously with your podcast, tell us.
Yeah. So it's the Journal Theory podcast. It's also journaltheory.com if you want to read the blog post, but really the magic is all on the podcast episodes. Right. And Instagram is my platform for sure. So at Journal Theory, or you could always, come find me on my personal page, which is Jordan P. Thomson, and that's Thomson without the P. The P is just in the middle.
Okay.
And then Facebook, again, it's just Journal Theory. So yeah, I am on social media all the time. So come by, say hey, and I would love to meet some new peeps.
Yeah, and see if maybe you can tell your story or, the mom's story on your podcast. Since
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm always looking for great new guests. So you never know.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for an awesome conversation. Your story is just incredible. I love, all of the things about overcoming and becoming a better version. Obviously, it's what I'm all about. So thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here.
Such a great conversation. I even had a hard time picking an intro, but this last piece of advice that she gave was just wow. Essentially, we have to create our own definition of success, happiness, and follow it. I am so happy you joined me on this conversation, and I would love to see you sharing a screenshot of this episode on your stories. Tag me and Jordan, leave us a review here on iTunes, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.